We left off, we were talking about not seeing the soul, not treating people as flesh, not seeing the soul in the body, right? Separating them in that way. And being in a race, being in the human race, the race towards all that is good, the race toward advancement, the race toward elevation, and not having the sense enough to be able to unify like the other animals do in the animal kingdom, that are able to do this without even being nearly as elevated as the human being, right? So what happens when we enter this life and we're on this journey where we're supposed to be together moving forward as human beings? What happens when we do this without morals, right? So we're in a race. This is a race. You have a clock in your chest called your heart. We are in a race. That clock will stop when your time is over. We are in a race, and we're supposed to be racing together, helping one another, right? When we don't have morals, we cheat. We one-up each other. We leave people behind. That seems to be the direction that we're going in, because we are losing our morals. I don't think any of us would agree that more and more people are becoming moral. I think we would say it's the latter. Unity and morality, I think they might be brother and sister, because that's the best way that I can put it. When your concerns are for the group, then you have a moral compass. When your concerns are for your individual self, your moral compass is probably on E, right? So, when we're steadfast with our morals, we're protected, even though we may not be the smartest, light bulb in the ceiling or whatever you may want to call it. We understand how the importance of morality. One thing that I've been thinking about while I was doing this study is, maybe we haven't been in the intellectual race for a while. Maybe as African Americans, we had slavery, we have all these things in our midst that have kept us out. But what is it now? Because now I think many of us have money. We certainly spend money, so we must have money. We have plenty of possessions. Many of us live in nice houses. We have nice clothes. We got all kinds of gear. We've got more than one car. We're doing okay, probably better than okay, right? So what is it that's keeping us from competing with the top competitors? I'm talking about the movers and shakers, the makers, the innovators, right? I would definitely say that a huge part of it has to do with the possessions and not being able to manage them or handle them. So though we may not have been in the intellectual race for, quite some time, or we're still trying to get there, what baffles me is that we've been in the moral race. We have been I would argue with someone that we have been some of the most moral people on the planet. Okay. We know what it is to be moral. We had it beaten into us, right? We were chastised. This is if we believe that slavery has a psychological effect. And this is where my interest or concern comes in. So, as the ancestors of slaves, and experiencing such trauma, such horrific trauma, and having to be servants. We were servants. We were belittled. We were looked at as less than. But we knew how to set a table. We knew how to clean a house. We knew how to have way beyond respect. We knew how to respond. We knew manners. We had all of that, and it was beaten into us. So you would think psychologically we would be some of the top competitors when it comes to service, the service industries, those businesses. You would think that we would be the untouchable because of the experience that we had. But instead, we've learned to hate it. We've learned to hate it. So my question is, where did we learn to hate it? Um, and I'm asking that question because if if we want to say we hate it because the white person, they did this to us. We don't want to, you know, have morals. I mean, we want to do whatever we want to do because we're finally able to do it. If we want to say that, then is that true? Is that true for you? Is that true for you? Would you say to yourself the reason that you let go of your morals, you no longer find a need to protect your family, you no longer need to be in a committed relationship with people, or with one person, or with people in general? Committed relationship, I'm not just talking about, husband and wife. I'm talking about to the community, to your children, committed relationships. Do you, in terms of drinking and, getting drunk and doing drugs and smoking weed and, these different things that we do now that open us up to being put in bad situations, being arrested and other things. Do you feel like that's the reason why? It's because you had to do it, your ancestors had to do it as slaves. Is that what you really believe? I'm just putting it out there. I don't know what you believe. But that's the question. And if you don't believe it, well, no, let's say you do believe it. If you do believe it, how does that work for you? Like, how do you think about it? Do you associate yourself with it, with being an ancestor of a slave, and why you decided that, having a moral life, not going to church anymore, not going to the masjid anymore, not praying with your family, not sitting down and having moral conversations, not, allowing curse words to be used in your house and being called out of your name in front of your kids, or calling your kids out of their name, not having the sense to eat healthier when you can afford it. These are moral things. Those are moral things. Have you thought about it? Okay, and if it's not that, it didn't have to do with us being beaten into being submissive and being in service. If it doesn't have anything to do with it, would you agree that we should be the top competitors in the service industry? That we should be great at it? Would that be something to be proud of, or are we ashamed? Would it be something where we should say, hey, talking to our children, listen, we went through slavery and we learned how to be in service. We learned how to treat people in a way that's so amazing that they will leave the biggest tips you've ever seen on that table. Are we ashamed to do that? Do we believe that there is such thing as, some of this oppressive nature being handed down, and that's making us incapable of moving forward? And if we do believe that these things were handed down, why wouldn't that have been handed down as well? That expertise and service. Do you think that we're some of the worst service providers in the world? Because I'm telling you that amongst African Americans, we do feel that way. We will say it. We will say that, oh, black businesses, they never on time, they're never open, the service is so bad. And we'll say that, a major department store could do something, and you might tell, somebody you went to, I don't know, Target or something, and something happened. But when it comes to your brother or sister, you'll get online and go on Yelp or something and act like your whole world was destroyed. These things that I'm bringing up right now, I think we should talk about them. I think they're worth talking about. Where is our moral compass, the thing that's allowed us to survive all of this time? Now, those of us that are moral, that are holding on to it, there are different categories or groups, I would say, of moral people. We do have moral people. We have people that care about morals. We still do. Even in this environment that completely says do whatever you want, there's still people that want to have morals and want to instill morals in their children and their families and their communities and their businesses. They're trying. But of those people, these are just the different types. You have the moral person that just wrongs themselves, meaning they're unaware but good-hearted. They're affected by influences because they're unaware, but they have really good hearts, and that's a lot of us. We're moral people. We have really good hearts, but we just can't intellectually compete with these predators out here. We just can't. We just can't. We're not that aware, and so unfortunately, we still get devoured, right? Then you have the moral people, or that we're pretty intellectually savvy. We're aware. What do they call it? We're woke. We're awoke, and we're good-hearted, but we're behind the scenes. We don't have the drive to compete. It's kind of like saying, okay, well, I do those things, right? And it can't go beyond yourself, because if you were doing it, if you had the will to say, I do it and I'm going to instill this in my family and with my child and my wife or my husband, then that's going to transpire into community. That's going to transpire into the world. So, we have moral individuality, I will call it, where it's just you and you're afraid to speak up. You're afraid. It takes a lot. Like even with me doing what I'm doing, it takes a lot to do this, because you don't know how people are going to perceive it. You don't know what's going to happen. You just try your best. You learn something really well, and you try your best to explain it, and you hope that someone benefits from it, and that's your part that you may play, whatever career you have or whatever your talents are. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So that's the third type. It's the one that has the will and the drive, that has the morals, that has that can compete intellectually, so that they can have businesses, they can have a standing, they can sit next to someone who has mastered something. These are the competitors. These are those of us that are in the race and that are willing to compete and get out there. That's the minority of us, and we need more of those. Okay, so there are moral people, in other words. We're talking about looking for people to marry, people to go into a community setting with and unite with. They're there. They are there. But those are some of the challenges that we have as moral people, not having the maybe intellectual prowess, not knowing, or being too preoccupied with our possessions and things that we have. But of the moral group, if you think about it, who is the most moral, just on a very basic level, who are the most moral people? The elderly people tend to be the most moral, and the babies and children. Why? I think it's because they're closest to either coming into the world or leaving the world. So, with elderly people, the older you get, the more interested you get in knowledge, the more interested you get in charity. And I would say that's the majority. Yes, you have your old buzzards and your old people that, they just want to hold on to dear life, or just negativity, and just they're like stones. But I don't think that's the majority. I think the majority of young people and old people, they come from a place where, with old people thinking of leaving this reality, and young people just entering. But look what we do in the race, in the human race towards all that is good and right, in your journey, your life journey, okay? We leave those people behind. We leave the children behind. We leave the elderly behind, because we're too busy now to deal with them. So they're going to be devoured by the predators. They're going to. Look how many elderly people get themselves in situations because they don't understand something. Someone's taking advantage of their money, taking advantage of them or their homes or their belongings. There's so many horrible stories. And then, of course, the kids, that's self-explanatory. We don't have time for our children because, again, we work all day. We come home. We cook if we can. We should be cooking. We cook if we can. We go to bed. How much time are you investing in making sure your child is protected? That your child is able to compete in one of these races, that they're not going to just grow up and just be living and mooching off of someone, or just living. You're just living. You're not invested in community, you know. But we're leaving them behind. You know, right now, if you're in your 30s and or late 20s, 30s, 40s, you know, 50s, 60s, you're probably the more intellectually savvy of, you know, of the generation, and you're probably the wealthiest of the bunch, unless you know, had sense enough to save and you're elderly. But the point is, you're in the race. You have the energy, right? We have the energy, and we should be ashamed to not care for our parents properly after they've cared for us. We should be ashamed not to want to leave something to our children. So we've left the moral groups behind. Even within ourselves, you know, we left our morality behind. We're leaving things that represent morality in general. We are leaving them behind. The grandmother's role with the family. What happened to it? Okay. What happened to that wise woman that you could go to, right? The grandfather's role in the family. What is he doing? Is he there? Is he playing a role in the family? You know, what's happening with this? Is he calling the family to teach them, to talk to them? You know, even if it's just sharing his old stories, that information is very valuable to know where you came from, right? Sunday dinners, you know, these are moral codes. Are they Sunday dinners? You know, we're busy. I know my mother-in-law cooks on Sundays. She cooks every Sunday. I rarely have time to go over there for that. I would love to go. I have to make time. I have to force myself to even think about it, to be honest with you. So, you know, and then let alone Sunday dinner at your own house. You know, does it exist? And if it does exist, are you really okay with dinner in a separate room and everybody on their phone and on their devices? Is that really what you want to do? How does that help with the morality in the home? Prayer in the home. You know, these are all moral things. Praying together. You know, what are you talking about when you're praying? Are you just speaking in Arabic and you don't know what you're saying? You're not having conversations afterwards with your family to talk about how this even matters and what difference it makes in your life? You know, what is it? But yes, we've left off of the religious religion. We left off of family traditions, even if you're not a religious person. These are all moral protections. Then, and if we're not, like I said, we're not walking around intellectuals, brilliant, knowing exactly how to handle everything and all that, then we need those protections. We need the morals. We need them. We see what's happening without them. And unfortunately, those of us, you know, who are intellectuals, you know, we don't feel like we need morals either, you know, and unfortunately, you know, you're going to reach your goal and you're going to be completely unsatisfied when you get there. Completely unsatisfied, because guess what? It's only going to be you. All right. And there's nothing more depressing than that. But I wanted to touch too on, you know, there's a story in scripture that actually talks about this. It talks about the story of Joseph, and it talks about how his brothers went off racing and they left him behind, and they claimed that he was devoured by the wolf. But he wasn't. He wasn't devoured by the wolf because he was a moral person. He was able to protect himself. He was protected by God. He was able to protect himself, and he was able to overcome his situation. And that's a message for us, that no matter how terrible things get out here, if we hold on to our morals, right? We hold on to good, decent values, we will survive, and we will come out better on the other end. We will come out better on the other end. And we have to bear it. We have to, if we're not going to do the work to get the knowledge that we need to advance ourselves, we have to at least hold on to our morality. So with that, I actually want to tell you, I'm going to be writing a poem on this as well. And, you know, I am writing songs right now. I'll be using a lot of content that I've shared. And, of course, my children's books that are going to be coming out on each of the animals. These will be for very small children. I'm hoping to be able to give information that is more modern and up to date, where our kids can kind of, you know, relate to it a little bit better. and it will be based on these talks. So I hope you're able to purchase that when I get it and share it, and to share these videos and to subscribe to my channel.